Well, thank you very much for joining us once again. So, with that, I think we can now proceed with the award ceremony for the winners of the Global Youth Contest. And now, just to give you some background, from October 7th to November 10th of this year, the youth from around the world have submitted in their essays and artworks. A total of 495 essays and 193 artworks were submitted. And among them, the winners were selected through a 10-day public verification process. And then after that, a result of the winners were selected, and the two teams were selected for the second place prize, one for the first place prize, and one for the grand prize in each category. Well, now that I've gone through the whole process, I'm very curious to see who came out with a short list of the winners for the contest. So if you're as curious as I am, let's take a look at all of the winners together. So in the arts category, in second place, Who Are You by Nguyen Hieu Hien from the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, and Dream Weavers for Peace, Women by Mo Han and Ling Xiu Huan from the People's Republic of China. In first place prize, the Security Council number 1325, Flying on the Flower Road of Peace by Im Gyuri of the Republic of Korea, and the grand prize, Women and Peace, 25 Years in Action by Dwi Eva Fitriana and Tri Eva Fitriani from the Republic of Indonesia. And now moving on to the essay category. In second place prize, Reimagining WPS, Empowering Women in Shaping a New Era of Global Peace and Security by Hanifa Yasmin Atira and Razara Rugunita Hasina from the Republic of Indonesia. And From Victims to Pioneers, Interfacing Women's Role in Peace and Security by Farhira Ardini Putri and Fariz Aldaka from the Republic of Indonesia. First place prize, Presence, Promotion, and Protection, 3 Pillars for Advancing Women in Peace and Security by Seo Hee-won of the Republic of Korea. And the grand prize, Promoting Women's Role in Peace and Security through the Localization of Women, Peace and Security of the WPS Agenda by Efetobor Stephanie Efevotu and Kadishi Undudi Olise from the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, please give the winners a big round of applause. So now that you have seen the short list, we will now proceed with the award ceremony for the representative award winners. And the award will be presented by none other than Mr. Lee Chul, the Director General for International Organizations and Nuclear Affairs. We'd like to now invite him up on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome him with a big round of applause. Thank you for joining us, Director General Lee. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that once we have set the stage to bring the winners up, we will now bring up the first place prize winner in the art category. I think that we're ready. Congratulations, Im Gyuri, please come forward. Congratulations. Ms. Im Gyuri, please come forward to claim your prize. First place prize in the art category, Im Gyuri. This certifies that the above-mentioned person has won the first place prize at the 2024 Global Youth Essay and Art Contest, hosted by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. December 10th, 2024. Cho Tae-yeol, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. Congratulations. Please give her a big round of applause. And of course, with our bouquet of flowers and the plaque, we'll now pose for the photo. Please give her a resounding round of applause and smile for the photo. Ms. Lim, big smile. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, please return to your seat. Thank you very much. Thank you, Director General Lee. Please remain on stage. And now, ladies and gentlemen, continuing on with the grand prize for the essay category. Congratulations, Efetobor Stephanie, Efevotu, and Kadishi Ndudi Olise. Please come forward. Congratulations. A bigger round of applause for her coming all this way. Congratulations. The grand prize for the essay category, Efetovor Stephanie Efevotu. This certifies that the above-mentioned person has won the grand prize at the 2024 Global Youth Essay and Art Contest, hosted by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. December 10th, 2024. Cho Tae-yeol, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. Congratulations. A big round of applause, please. And the beautiful flowers as well as a plaque is delivered. Congratulations. Can we see some teeth for the smile? Thank you. Big smiles, please, for the camera. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now, thank you very much, Director General Lee. Please return to your seat. Thank you very much. Can we give another big round of applause to all of our winners? Thank you. Thank you very much. And of course, these were the representative winners, and we will also be delivering the plaques to all of the other winners as well. And now we'll swiftly move on to our youth session towards the next 25 years of women, peace, and security agenda. So I would like to ask our moderator and panelists of the youth session to join us up on stage. Please come up. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them up on stage with a big round of applause. Thank you. I have great expectations on what they have to say because they are now going to lead us into the future generation. So I think that they're ready for us. So I would now like to introduce our moderator, Ms. Emilia Hanuksela, the team lead of the Youth, Peace and Security at the UN Youth Office. Please, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, and I'm actually going to stand up. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, how are we feeling? I love the energy. That's amazing. Keep it up. So it's really an honor to welcome you to this youth-led panel discussion, which will actually be taking us for a journey into the future. So we will be looking at what will the next 25 years look like of the Women, Peace and Security agenda. So it's going to be very exciting. I hope you are as excited as I am today. So my name is Emilia, and I will be kind of your host, navigating you through this journey into the future. But before we kick off this session today, I would like to ask you a question. How many in the audience are familiar with the Pact for the Future, which might appear on the screen soon? So if I can have a show of hands, if you can raise your hand if you have ever heard about something called the Pact for the Future. I saw a couple of hands. That's great. Super. Actually, quite a lot of hands there in the middle. That's really good to see. So the Pact for the Future, it was actually recently adopted by the member states at the United Nations during the Summit for the Future. And it's quite significant because it includes some concrete actions on how we will together advance both the Women, Peace and Security agenda and also the Youth, Peace and Security agenda. And these are actions actually that the Global Committee has now committed to, and they are valid on the global, regional and country level. And this will also be our blueprint today as we start the discussions with our lovely panelists. So with a show of hands again, Who here is ready to now embark on this journey into the future of the Women, Peace and Security agenda? Is anyone ready? I see a lot of hands here. Super, okay, so let's start the session. And I'm really thrilled to be joined here by our distinguished panelists who bring a lot of expertise on the Women, Peace and Security agenda. You have so much insights on peace building, gender equality, mediation. I could go on the whole day. But let me cut to the chase and introduce you to this brilliant all-female panel. Starting with Noor Aziza, the director of the Rohingya Maya Faunyor Collaborative Network. Welcome. A little bit of applause, maybe. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Then we have Hajar Sharif, the co-founder of Together We Build It. Welcome. Thank you. Next, we have Pashtana Dorani, executive director from Learn Afghanistan. Welcome. And last, but definitely not least, we have Yubin Kim, the Korean Youth Envoy for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation. Welcome. Amazing. Well, it's great to have all of you joining us here today. And let's start this discussion by, as I was saying earlier, looking into the future. That's where we're headed right now. And as we all know it, there is a lot of exciting things that can happen in the future. And a lot has already happened when it comes to the Women, Peace and Security agenda, since it was adopted almost 25 years ago now. So it's been quite a long time. But also a lot of work remains to still be done. So now I would invite all of our panelists to put your creative hats on and to really paint a picture for us. How do you see, what do you envision for the Women, Peace and Security agenda when you look into the future? So each of our speakers will have a couple of minutes to share their visions with all of us here. And as our speakers are sharing and painting this picture of the future, you might be seeing some images popping up on the screen behind us, so let's keep an eye for that. So allow me to start with Noor. Would you like to elaborate on how does your vision look like?
Sure. Thank you so much for that gracious introduction. And, it's nice to still be included as part of the youth movement. I think it might be my final year in being part of the youth. But I am the director of Rohingya Maya Faunyor Collaborative Network. So Maya Faunyor essentially just means women in our language. We are a refugee-led, Rohingya-led, women-led organization. And you can see my team over here in the back, a team of 4 incredible Rohingya women that you might have never seen before. We started off with a team of 4, and now we're a team of 8. The unique thing about our organization is beyond working experience, each one of these women, Yasmin Ullah, myself, Nur Hayati, and Nur Hayati, they both have the same name, please don't ask me why. Each of them has faced the horrors of displacement and violence from Burma to ASEAN countries. I myself was displaced in Malaysia for 8 years and a half before I received resettlement in Australia. And in these countries, we received very little support for our education, for our livelihood, until we were able to do that in the respective countries that we resettled in. The double Noors, they live in the US now. Yasmin lives in Canada now. And what we do is we focus on Rohingya issue in ASEAN because that becomes a blind spot for Rohingya. And we all have the lived experience. And I guess to answer your question, what I envision is for Rohingya women to be included in the decision-making processes, but not in a tokenistic manner, but actually be there in the room. Today, I met a couple of people during some informal meetings and lunches, and they said, "You are the first Rohingya that I have ever met in my whole life." I'm so happy to see that. And that really touched my heart. So I envision that from a team of 4 to 8, we hope to see a team of 30 Rohingya women doing the work for the community. One final thing I'd like to add is statelessness has also become a factor of, it's easy to exclude us because we are the largest stateless community in the world. There are 2.8 million Rohingya worldwide. There are more Rohingya outside of Burma, Myanmar than inside. I think that underscores the severity of our crisis. We've been pushed outside of our ancestral homeland and displaced in neighboring countries. Out of the 2.8 million Rohingya, only 1% of the 2.8 million live in peace and have identity and a passport, and I'm part of that 1%. But we shouldn't make that become a reason to exclude Rohingya women in the process. So we hope to keep being at the forefront of decision-making processes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noor, for sharing about this inclusive vision, and you touch on one of the key principles also of the Women, Peace, Security agenda, which is participation. And I'm sure we will hear a lot more examples around the participation, especially of young women in peace and security. But let me now turn to Hajar. Could you elaborate on your vision for the future of the WPS agenda?
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the energy, and thank you for the Republic of Korea for convening us today and your generosity in hosting us. It's been really touching, so thank you for that. I think for me, and I think it will be self-explanatory in terms of the photo, for me the future is truly intergenerational co-leadership. Not only in WPS and YPS, but in peace and security general. And the reason why I have this photo of the late Kofi Annan, because for me, this truly resembles a true partnership between different generations. I had the privilege of engaging with him as part of the Extremely Together initiative, and I've seen firsthand how an intergenerational co-leadership can actually be implemented and practical. So maybe to say a little bit about what do I mean by an intergenerational co-leadership, because for me, doing things from an intergenerational perspective and doing things from an intergenerational co-leadership perspective, it means that we're learning from the past, we're improving the present, and we're presenting and ensuring that there is a better future for all. And I think after soon to be 25 years of WPS, soon to be 10 years of 2250, the Youth, Peace and Security agenda, I think this is really the time to merge both of them together. We can still have the two resolutions as they stand right now, but I think we need to do more efforts into bringing these two resolutions together, two agendas together. And maybe the last thing to say, just to be a little bit provocative, I truly don't see a future for WPS if it's not implemented from an intergenerational co-leadership perspective. And when we go to the next segment, I'll explain why. But just again, to be provocative, let me make the statement now.
Thank you so much, Hajar. We like that, don't we? And I think we need to be a little bit provocative and to think outside of the box. And I really love this example that you talk about, the intergenerational partnerships and bringing generations together. And I also like the fact that you touched upon the synergies between the YPS and the WPS agendas, which can be very powerful. And we will actually be elaborating on this a little bit later in the panel. But next, I would like to turn now to Pashtana to hear more about your vision for the future of the WPS agenda. Over to you.
Thank you so much for asking that question, and thank you so much for the Republic of South Korea to invite me again to share the stage. It is my second time. I think I would really want to focus on two things that most of us shy away from: soft power versus hard power. And let me explain this further. Soft power is women in leadership in civil societies in local tribal settings. Today, I don't come and share the stage with you guys as someone who has founded Learn as an organization that focuses and runs secret schools in Afghanistan. My focus here is I'm representing a tribal community that has gone through war for the past 40 years. And even today, the women in my community, widows, are not represented. They're the last ones that are even seen or heard. And today, the women of Afghanistan, everybody talks about them, but nobody is actually talking to them. And even when they're talking to them, it's always an elitist approach. And the reason I am bringing in these pictures, this is soft power plus hard power. These are women who worked as cultural support team people from the US Army with the FTPs, which is Female Tactical Platoon members within the Afghan Army, who served for almost 20 years in Afghanistan. These women went to Helmand, a sister province to Kandahar, where I come from, and they served in schools, they served in hospitals, which is pillars in, by the way, in relief and recovery and participation in the Women, Peace and Security agenda. But they also worked on anti-terrorism. They also worked on key aspects when it comes to security. So I think for me, the future is no woman is safe until every woman is safe, and no woman is free until every woman is free. And for that to happen, it doesn't have to be a white woman helping a brown woman, but it has to be brown and white and every woman of color standing together and working together on an agenda, on a future that represents that country, but also the international framework. An example of that would be in 2020, COVID hit. We were working with education and content development in Afghanistan. We were only focusing on the South and especially only on Learn and the young girls from grade 7 to grade 12. 2021 happened, and Afghanistan fell apart. Today, girls in Afghanistan cannot go to school post grade 6. I came in touch with most of these women, and here's the fun part. In 2022, we were able to run the first secret satellite program within Afghanistan that helps young girls access education and internet, that helps almost 700 girls access schooling from grade 7 to grade 12, and that's not traceable by the current regime. That was only possible because Women, Peace and Security agenda was integrated into the training of military, which was a hard power, and in many ways, in my training as a tribal leader, growing up in that conflict zone community, that you have to work with different partners to enable resources and to make sure those work for them. So I think the one thing that I see for the future is safety, participation, recovery, and relief, but all of that in a realm where young women are not sitting on a stage just because they wear a headscarf or they come from a country that is conflict zone, but also they come with solutions, and those solutions are integrated into policies, and those policies become part of that identity of that country. I tend to hate a lot on a lot of things that an international community does in Afghanistan, because most of it ends up in a place where they tend to only listen to us, but not actually work with us. So I think for me, the next 25 years are more action, more representation, but most importantly, working together in participation, not instead of just envisioning a future and then 25 years later meeting here and saying, oh, I think we did a good job, but thank you.
Thank you so much. And I really like the way how you were painting your vision by using the concrete example of education. And just to echo the principle you made on safe participation, on the protection of all the women and young women and everyone who is engaging with the Women, Peace, Security agenda. We have heard today already a lot about the fact that there are multiple various kind of threats that these different actors are facing when they're building peace and security in their communities. And I think looking towards the future, this is something that we all definitely want to address and improve. So thank you for that. And now I will turn to Yubin to please share a little bit about your vision for the future of the WPS agenda. Over to you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for this valuable opportunity. Honestly, when I first heard about this panel, I thought, wow, women, peace, security, what a big topic to tackle. But then I realized, isn't that exactly what we're here to do? Dream big, think bold, and maybe even change the world together? From my studies in political science and international relations to my experience as a youth envoy for disarmament and non-proliferation, I witnessed remarkable shifts in what we consider normal. Today, we view equal voting rights as standard and reject war and violence as viable solutions. These are the universal norms of our time. When I think about the future of WPS agenda, I imagine a world where this conversation isn't even necessary. A world where women leading peace processes, rebuilding communities, and shaping security policies is just normal. Not newsworthy, not groundbreaking, just part of everyday life. That's the new normal I dream of. But getting to that new normal isn't easy. At Reaim, where I focus on AI and security policies, I learned two important lessons. First, AI technology is a game changer. It can amplify marginalized voices, and it can prevent conflicts before they escalate. And second, technology can also divide us if we don't ensure equal use and ethical use. It's a double-edged sword. Now, imagine a world where every young woman has access to this kind of technologies, where she can use AI to rebuild her community and lead a renewable energy projects in her village. That's not just peace building, that's creating a future where youth and women are the architects of the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for outlining that quite ambitious vision for the future. And we, of course, love to hear that. And I found it very interesting how you were also touching on the principles of technology and artificial intelligence and how can we safely engage with these tools to build peace and security. So thank you so much for that. And all of the visions that you shared, I'm really inspired. It's been great to hear about your ideas. And I'm also looking at the audience here, and I encourage all of you to think about what does your vision look like for the next 25 years of advancing the Women, Peace and Security agenda. And perhaps after the panel, you can come and find us all and we can discuss and share some ideas together. So as you have heard, we have a lot of potential here. We have great innovation, a lot of different ideas to build on moving forward. But there are also some obstacles, as we all know. There are challenges with implementing the Women, Peace and Security agenda. And most likely these challenges will continue to remain as well when we continue building peace and continuing to look at the path towards inclusive peace and the future. So now zooming in on these challenges and some of the obstacles, I would like to turn once again to our panelists to hear your thoughts on this. So what do you think are some of the challenges that you expect that we need to overcome when advancing the Women, Peace and Security agenda, and really drawing on your expertise and your work so far? And based also on your experience, what are some of the solutions that we could put into practice to overcome these challenges? So for this round, I'll give you roughly 4 minutes to answer. And let's begin this time with Yubin. So the floor is yours, please.
Well, this question made me stop and think a while. The world challenge is always intriguing. It's familiar, yet it feels very different every time. From something very small like finding a good Wi-Fi to something monumental like advancing global peace and security, challenges keep us moving forward. The WPS agenda in particular is not just about discussions, it's about action and change, which makes it a more meaningful challenge. The first challenge I've observed is the gap between norms and action. Many countries create ambition plans, but these often fail to translate into tangible outcomes. At the Reaim conference, I've noticed the same issue. We shared fascinating ideas about the ethical use of AI, but there was a lack of concrete roadmaps to implement these ideas. Bridging this gap is the first step toward meaningful progress in the WPS agenda. The second challenge is the lack of collaboration with the private sector. The WPS agenda aims to empower women and marginalized groups and build peace in conflict zones. But much of the technology and resources lies within the private sector companies. If private companies are excluded from the discussion, the norms we establish might be risk being disconnected from reality. So private sector collaboration is key to turning the WPS agenda into action. This and now, I would like to propose a technology-driven public-private partnership model. This model aims for governments and private companies to collaborate, each taking on specific roles to guide ethical guidelines. In this collaboration, South Korea AI reliability certification can be a good reference point. This system, I came across this significant policy during my work as a youth delegate. It encouraged AI technologies to go beyond technical achievements and contribute to creating social value. In practice, successful cases like AI-tested cancer diagnosis systems and fair recruitment systems have demonstrated the reliability and social responsibility of these technologies. For example, let's imagine building a real-time risk monitoring system to protect women and children in conflict zones. Governments would collect data and provide ethical guidelines, while private companies would analyze the data and make it into actionable solutions. If applied to the WPS agenda, the partnership model could strengthen the safety of women and marginalized groups while enabling governments and private companies to develop sustainable technological solutions together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think this is a really interesting example that you highlighted, both the challenge when it comes to the potential gaps in using technology, but also you spoke about the collaboration with the private sector. And I think there's a lot of potential there to really strengthen this type of partnerships and to do it in an intergenerational manner. And that kind of makes me look at Hajer here again, because you brought this up in your vision. So if you wouldn't mind elaborating from your perspective, what could some of these challenges look like in the future, and perhaps to give us some solutions as well based on your work?
Well, now let me go back to the first statement I made, that I don't think there will be, at least maybe to add, a good WPS future if it's not conducted and implemented from an intergenerational perspective. And in terms of the challenges, I think we do have existing challenges that we need to address even beyond thinking about, what would be the upcoming challenges. And these challenges, in my opinion, are external challenges. And what I mean by them, they are not challenges that originate from within. So there are not challenges that are within the WPS movement or the YPS movement, which, again, for me, if we find a way to merge these two together and create meaningful partnerships, then we will get an intergenerational co-leadership approach in doing peace and security general. But rather, they are challenges that, again, are external. And in my opinion, there are two. One challenge that relates to lack of spaces, and another challenge that relates to lack of resources. So when it comes to lack of spaces, and I really like earlier one of the panelists said, we need to create space for the leadership that already exists. Because I don't think there is enough space for that. Because what I've noticed, and maybe to give a little bit of a background, I started my work in this field more than a decade ago. And I joined both the women movement and the youth movement in a conflict-affected country, which also naturally means the WPS movement and the YPS movement even before 2250 was adopted. And what I noticed is that there is this segregation between the two movements and the two actors. But also what I noticed is that after 2250 was adopted, the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda, actors who are mandated to implement this, and peace and security actors, implemented a bit of a linear approach without really understanding what it means to have a WPS agenda and a YPS agenda. And that created not only challenges, but that also harmed some of the progress that has been achieved on the WPS agenda front. And to give a very concrete example, I remember almost more than 9 years ago, there was a meeting that was organized by the UN mission in Libya, and it was a meeting that relates to peace and security that was focused on WPS, and it brought together women peace builders from across the country. And then young women advocated that young women need to be part of this meeting. But unfortunately, instead of expanding the space and making more space, what happened is that some of the senior women who were invited got disinvited and were told that, sorry, you can no longer come to the meeting because we have to include the young women now. Now we have a mandate to include the young women. And in my opinion, that was not only a horrible example on how to do YPS, but it's also a harmful thing to do because, of course, then the senior women who got disinvited, for the first time, actually, they started thinking that, okay, so now we're going to be replaced by the young woman, or now when we're hearing young women saying we want a seat at the table, that will come at our expense, while this should not be the case. If it's a table of 10 seats, make it 15, make it 20, but you don't need to make it 10. So this is one, lack of spaces. Then the other thing is lack of resources. As we all see, there is more and more reduced funding to peace building work, especially for grassroots, especially for women-led groups and organizations. And with a more increased focus on supporting young women, which is rightly so, what I'm seeing as an emerging trend is a bit of either-or approach. Either we support organizations and groups that are led by senior women, or we support organizations and groups that are led by young women. And I've seen an example actually a few months ago where an organization that is truly intergenerational, that applied for funding, and then they got rejected. It wasn't because their proposal wasn't good. The justification they were given is that now we want to focus on supporting young women, and you as an organization, you don't qualify as that. And I think that's another example of doing things in a harmful way, because then people, are really putting two actors against each other and highlighting even more that there is a segregation or there's a separation. And that's why earlier I said, I don't see a good future for WPS without implementing things in an intergenerational perspective, because I think the reality is, again, with lack of spaces, with lack of resources, if we're not doing things intergenerationally, then we're gonna end up competing with each other. And then that doesn't mean that, WPS or YPS will survive. It also means that something else is gonna come up where these two agendas are going to be replaced, because this is what I'm seeing right now. Again, a bit of an either-or approach.
Thank you so much, Hasher, for that answer. And I think everyone in the room here can agree that these two challenges you highlighted are really kind of like hitting the nail on its head, so to say. I think especially when it comes to the resources. And I think the point you made was very strategic, to think about how can we mobilize resources, how can we collaborate instead of compete, and bring the generations together, and to do that in an inclusive and collaborative manner. And I think this also requires building trust and really making sure that these spaces are open for everyone to participate. So thank you for that. So now, turning next to Noor, to hear some of your thoughts on the possible challenges that might emerge and some solutions.
So part of the work that we do at Rohingya Maya Final Collaborative Network is we visit our communities that are in exile, and we focus on ASEAN, and WPS is extremely high in our agenda because we focus on women and children. So in the last year, we've gone to Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, where there are many Rohingya currently in exile looking for a safe place to live in. And I'll speak about some of the key issues in Indonesia and Malaysia that women and children are facing. In Indonesia, so sexual violence does not stop when you leave Burma, Myanmar. It actually continues in Southeast Asia. we've had many women leave Burma with their children and end up in Bangladesh, have very limited opportunities, and make that extremely life-threatening journey towards Indonesia. We've seen an increased movement of women and children arriving in the last few months, given that the violence in Rakhine State has increased, and there are ethnic armed groups that are also running away with impunity. And in Indonesia right now, what my organization is doing is we are providing gender-sensitive care to 6 Rohingya women that were raped on the boat by human traffickers. They've given birth to the children last week, but we were the first responders to help our people. And these are the gaps that we don't hear about, and these are the challenges that we face every single day as a very, very small refugee-led organization. Mind you, we are not a humanitarian aid organization. We go to ASEAN to look for systematic change as we've all faced the horrors and displacement in those countries. In Malaysia, when we visited our women just 3 months ago, it was a bit of a bittersweet moment for me because I spent 8 years and a half there being displaced. 90% of my time was hiding in the jungles, afraid of being detained. And I went there, we conducted interviews with our women, and they spoke about the exorbitant fees of medical facilities. There was one story that was so heart-wrenching. It was about a Rohingya woman. She was heavily pregnant. She went to the clinic, and she said, I need to give birth. I'm ready to give birth. And they asked for 5,000 ringgit as a deposit. 5,000 ringgit is about 2,000 Australian dollars. I mean, I don't even have that immediately. So we cannot expect the most persecuted community in the world, according to the United Nations, to have an ample amount of money. So what happened to this woman is she was left in front of the clinic, and her and her unborn baby passed away. So this is just one story of many Rohingya women that are currently facing the issues of violence after fleeing Burma, Myanmar. And these are some of the issues that my own mother faced in Malaysia. You know, Rohingya women have always been the key actors in keeping us alive. My own mum left Burma with 5 children, carrying 5 children. Do you know how difficult that is? To Malaysia, and to keep 5 children alive is very, very hard. And I remembered her sending us to different hiding spots. We had to pick up local language. We didn't pick up Bahasa Melayu because it was fun, because we wanted to download Duolingo. But it was a survival tactic. We knew that we needed to integrate in local community. Today, I speak fluent in Bahasa. And so what we do, back to your question, to combat these challenges is we use our stories of resettlement as positive stories. The team members that you just saw now, they faced such hardship in Thailand and Malaysia with 0 education. And now Nur Hayati, she's an engineer. The other Nur Hayati, she's about to be a doctor. I went to the University of Sydney and had 2 degrees from there. I did political science and an education degree. So these are missed opportunities for ASEAN and beyond. Rohingya want to make meaningful contributions in these countries, but we're not given the resources and the platform. And one last thing I'm going to highlight, one of the challenges that's been extremely challenging for the Rohingya community and Rohingya organizations is the hate speech, misinformation, and disinformation against us in the region. And the Special Rapporteur, Tom Andrews, actually conducted a report that he released early this year and figured out that these hate speech were actually paid hate speech by very powerful people and utilizing the Rohingya plight to put money in their pockets to get votes. And this hate speech is manifesting to physical violence in the region. And who's facing the brunt of this physical violence? Women and children. And this hate speech, you know, I've been a victim of this hate speech. It's a language that we've seen from Burma. You know, the persecution of Rohingya has started way beyond the 2021 military coup. The language that's been used against us in the country is now spreading in the region. There was one video of me that was posted by UNHCR Asia, and I was talking about how Rohingya want a safe repatriation back to our homeland with a protective mechanism that's actually going to work for us. There are 5,500 comments under. You can have a look. And the languages were, We don't want you. You're too dark. You are animal-like. You are like a thorn. And you know, I wasn't surprised because I was like, oh, okay, this is exactly the same language that junta has used against us for a very long time. And you got to think about why hate speech is used in Burma first. Hate speech is used in Burma against Rohingya in order to normalize violence against us. And so when violence does occur against Rohingya in the country, then it's normalized because we've been compared to animals and thorns and trees and so on. And now we're seeing it manifest to actual violence. What we did amidst of this hate speech in Indonesia as a team is we conducted art competition amongst the art Chinese community and the Rohingya community. And these artwork were incredible. Our winner was a young Rohingya girl, 15-year-old, showcasing her journey from Burma to Bangladesh to Aceh. And she drew these harrowing pictures and images to showcase people that she's not arriving in Indonesia to enjoy a 5-star resort in Bali. She's arriving in Indonesia out of desperation and the need to look for a safe place for herself and her family.
Thank you, Noor. Thank you for really highlighting these examples. I see that it's very difficult for you and probably also emotional, and I feel like there's so much power when you speak. So I think I can speak on everyone's behalf for being really grateful of learning more about these examples. You touched upon gender-based violence, you talked about hate speech as well, and you gave some very powerful solutions. I especially think the example you gave on storytelling and using arts and different creative methods to get these type of examples out there in the global community and to raise awareness is very important. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. So let me move on now to Pashtana to hear some of your challenges and solutions to these as well. Thanks.
So, I mean, building on what Noor said, and I could relate to so much of that, I kept on, like, shaking my head. I was like, yes, girl, yes. I think, for me, the women, peace, and security agenda in Afghanistan has been so elitist that it has barely met the local movement in many ways, or the local tribal community, I would say. It has always been limited to the Kabul elite circle, people who ended up in parliament, people who could go to the UN circles, people who could go to the green zone circles. And I think the youth piece, and the YPS in the same way has been very limited to the same space. And in many ways, I come from southern Afghanistan. In the south, I'm from Kandahar, where right now the regime has its capital. And for the most part, people in my community or people in the South would look at things like WPS, YPS as something that only related to people in Kabul, things that would only be implemented to women who are educated, and wouldn't be something that would be relatable to us. And that's where the challenges began. So challenges, for example, in the past 20 years, women, peace, and security thrived in many ways in civil sector, in army, but also funded corrupt politicians in my country, funded corrupt women in my country, and even today, to this day, many UN agencies are awarding them multiple bravery awards because these women stood up for something, and the reality is, when you Google them, they are drug leaders or drug cartel leaders or people who have kidnapped other people, women who wouldn't let the resolution of young girls under 16 being children to be passed when they were parliamentarians. And I think to myself, I'm like, as a woman, when I call that out, am I betraying my own gender? Because those are women who are representing Afghanistan in a very different light, and we need all the light right now we can get. As a young person, do I really want them to get that space? Because in the end, I know that they're going to get that attention, they're going to take projects, they're going to make Afghanistan a humanitarian industry, and in 20 years, we're still going to be asking for flour, for sugar, for security, for letting our schools to be open, for the lack of technology, for the fact that we'll be refugees. Here's a story from 2021. Afghanistan fell. We were under siege for 3 months. And in those 3 months, a woman passed into Pakistan. When she passed into Pakistan, she was about to give birth, and they wouldn't let her in into the hospital. So she had to give birth on the road, and she lost her life. And that horrified me so much that I thought of a clinic within the South before the women could pass into the country. Now, I am an educator. I don't know a lot about healthcare, but I saw a problem and I found a solution, and I worked with local community leaders. And that is, by the way, a clinic that provides abortion too, FYI. So the reason I'm bringing in this is when you have local buy-in, when you have local trust, people will trust you. This morning, I got a call from a local community leader. For the past 2 months, we have been navigating the arrest of 2 people in my nonprofit, one a woman and one a man. Now, I don't want to take the name of the organization that is affiliated with UN and works for women, but sort of were the people the reason that our information got leaked, because we were working with them. And when our information was leaked, our coworkers started getting arrested. And when our coworkers started getting arrested, they were like, oh, we're done. We cannot help you anymore. You are on your own. So I think Ms. Arab, she's not more here, but she was talking about women, WPHF, a fund that works with women, peace and security, and especially for women rights defenders. It is infiltrated in Afghanistan right now. Any fund that you apply for right now, it's infiltrated. So when you're applying for it, whenever you get funding from it, the Taliban already know you're getting funding. Because on the security check-in, when you're going into any UN office right now, you have to write your name and organization. And when you do that, the Taliban have that list, because that security person is, by the way, Taliban or a loyalist. So in many ways, I think these structures are not made to support YPS or WPS. They are open to being infiltrated. They are open to work with any sort of regime without resisting them. And I don't want to sort of whitewash that. There are a lot of amazing people who are trying very hard to make sure that Afghanistan and women participation and all of that is intact in many ways. But in many ways, I think we're also served on a platter just because we are people who are opposing the current regime openly. And the reason when I bring in these arrests, I would never in my life apply for a funding for this one reason when it comes to women, peace and security, or women humanitarian funding, because I would rather send my people to another country and be in debt than be infiltrated. Now, when I talk about all these problems and solutions, I'm talking about very local challenges. I'm talking about how people are getting arrested. I'm talking about how these are seen as elitist movements. And I'm talking about how these are something that cannot work within countries like Afghanistan. But there is also an understanding that we tend to forget, is that Afghanistan is a 5,000-year-old country. We have structures way, way before that WPS or YPS was introduced. So we have tribal structures where women do have a very important role, and they could play an important role only if they were engaged with. The same goes for younger people who have a very big network. I think they can be very instrumental in implementing policies, in being part of those policies, instead of just being part of the panel discussions. Last but not the least, I think it's very important that the leadership that is developed within this process is something that is clean, that is not corrupt, that doesn't carry the blurs from the last decades, and is also focusing more on Afghanistan or countries like Afghanistan rather than serving that current agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you really for these concrete examples, zooming in at the local level, and you also gave some very concrete solutions, forward-looking solutions to address some of these challenges. So as we have heard from our panelists here, there are significant challenges, there are obstacles that remain when we're advancing the WPS agenda, but there is also some optimism, we have solutions, and I think Hajer was the one who mentioned that the synergies between the WPS agenda and the YPS agenda, which stands for Youth, Peace and Security, are essential to keep in mind when we think about the future of the peace building sector. So with that, I would like to turn to the last question, and this time I will be very strict when it comes to timekeeping, so I would hope for the panelists to keep your answers to 2 minutes, really to give me an elevator pitch. And I'm wondering, when we look at the future, in your opinion, how can the WPS agenda better align with the priorities of the young people today when we talk about the climate crisis, digital security, and so on? And what kind of innovative new approaches can we take to bridge this gap between the WPS and the YPS agendas? And let's start with Hajer.
I think I'm going to be saying a lot of intergenerational now, that it might sound there is a secret intergenerational group that is paying me to say this. But I really think, again, it is adopting an intergenerational approach. And it's something you also said earlier in terms of trust. I don't think there is trust right now between different generations. Working on peace and security, whether we call it WPS, YPS, for me, the framework doesn't really matter. What matters is the actual work and the commitment. So I think what we really need is an intergenerational dialogue that is conducted in a safe space where we can really discuss all of these challenges. Because otherwise, I think we will still continue talking in silos and talking at each other, about each other, and not really talking with each other. And I think having a genuine intergenerational dialogue also about the different understandings between generations on what peace and security is fundamental to move forward.
Thank you. Yubin, over to you. You have max 2 minutes.
Okay. I would like to focus on two topics. The first one is climate crisis. In South Korea, we recently experienced 4 seasons coexisting in November. Some people were in t-shirts, while others bundled up in coats. And as a result, cabbage prices soared. Korean moms jokingly called it golden cabbage, while scrambling for alternatives to kimchi. This isn't just about strange weather, it's about security issue tied to resource scarcity, rising food costs, and potential conflicts. And next is the digital security. When the deepfake issue made headlines in South Korea, many of my friends turned their Instagram into private. And they were afraid their photos might be misused. This isn't just about technical problem, it's a serious threat that undermines trust in digital spaces. And I would like to suggest that first, AI technology can play a significant role in addressing issues like deepfakes and misinformation. For example, AI-powered detection systems can analyze videos and images to verify their authenticity. In fact, many countries are already adopting such technologies to identify and block false information. Deepfakes pose a particularly severe threat to women's rights advocates and activists. By linking this to the WPS agenda, these technologies can be utilized as tools to protect women's rights. For instance, AI can detect fake information and provide real-time alerts to users, using that women can engage in digital spaces more safely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we will hear from Noor.
I'll keep mine very short. I think we can see that refugee-led, community-led driven initiatives are much more impactful because it's combined with our lived experience and our professional expertise. So I guess my call to action is to support these initiatives and these much needed advocacy. It could be increased funding or also non-monetary support for organizations. I'll give you some examples of our successes in the last year as an organization. There's been more than 45,000 Rohingya that's been displaced in the last few months, given the fighting amongst 2 armies in Rakhine. And out of the 45,000 that have crossed the Naf River across to Bangladesh, We've provided humanitarian aid to more than 2,000 families, and most of these were women and children. We were the first responders, a very small refugee organization, to provide them with aid. We've provided education support for Rohingya children in Malaysia. We are providing psychosocial support for 81 unaccompanied Rohingya children in Aceh, Indonesia. And what that means, these children have lost their parents during the sea journey, and they've actually witnessed their parents drown. And again, we saw that as a gap in much needed work for our children. So I guess I'll end it with a few call to actions. We need support, so please come and talk to me after this. In any way you can possible within your network, formally or informally. We need Rohingya women to be part of the decision-making process. There is a civil war in Burma, Myanmar. There is a lot of talk about what future Burma, Myanmar is going to look like. There was a period of democracy in Burma between 2011 to 2020. Did that provide Rohingya with an avenue for safety? No, it didn't, to be blunt. So democracy has failed Rohingya. So we need to ensure that Rohingya voices are part of the decision-making processes for a future Burma, Myanmar, and for us to be meaningfully included in the system.
Thank you so much. And last, over to Pashtana for your answer, please.
I think I would reiterate what I said, soft power versus hard power. Let's not sit in our corners and talk about this from a humanitarian action point of view or from a military action point of view. I think it's time that there is a collaboration, and let's not be scared when women in the military want to talk to women in civil society movements or want to collaborate, because that's how nations are built and that's how the international framework is going to be built. The next focus, I think, for the next 25 years should be diplomacy, economy, and empowerment. And the focus, again, would go back to access to transformational tech, AI, or anything of that sort should be accessible, especially in conflict zones, because that's where the innovation comes from. Afghanistan right now, we're employing more than 4 types of innovative educational tools: an offline app module that works for anyone who's offline, a radio program that goes all over Afghanistan, connecting 6 million users, a SIM card program that connects more than 2 million users, and then last but not the least, a satellite program that is not traced by the current regime. The reason I'm bringing in these, I wouldn't have done this if it was not for other civil society organizations or the military people out there who helped with women, peace, and security. So again, going back, drawing on those, diplomacy, economy, and empowerment in a way where you can implement it rather than just making it a policy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pashtana, and thank you to all of our panelists for highlighting very concrete, action-oriented ideas and solutions that also build on the synergies between the YPS and the WPS agenda. So a lot of food for thought that I hope that all of us can take with us now when we venture into the future. I hope that you have all enjoyed this session. I have personally learned a lot. And I also want to make the point, which I hope that all of you are aware of, that next year will be a very big year for both the WPS and the YPS agendas. It's the big anniversaries of 25 and 10 years. So there's a lot of celebrations coming, and I hope that we can take some of these ideas, suggestions, examples with us when we're now approaching into the future, into next year of 2025 and the big anniversary celebrations. And finally, I would like to invite all of the audience here to come and continue the discussion with the panelists and myself. I wish we would have had more time because there is so much to say about this agenda from the futuristic perspective, but I'm sure we can find a moment to continue the discussion. And last but not least, I would like to give a huge thank you to our esteemed panelists for your commitment to these agendas, both to the WPS and the YPS agendas, for all the inspiring work you do, and for being here today to share about your examples and giving us so much food for thought. And also thank you to the audience for being so active. And as I was saying, the journey will continue. Kasa Hamida.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't normally do this, but I think that our moderator actually deserves a stage on her own because I think that she has given an exceptional amount of energy on her own. So please give her an extra large round of applause, please. Thank you. So please, please return to your seats. Thank you very much for the interesting panel discussion. I think that we have a great 25 years ahead. Also looking forward to the future. She says that she did not have enough time, but I think that she'll have, or the group of panelists also will have 25 years ahead of them to discuss into the future. So thank you very much for the interesting panel and the discussions that they have started for us today. So that brings us to the end of the youth session for now. And we've shared insights as well as the thoughts under the theme of approaching 25 years or the 25th anniversary of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, sharing lessons altogether across the UN missions and nations. I hope that you've had a wonderful time with us, sharing various different discussions across various different subjects today. We still do have a lot to discuss. We have much more to do in the future, but for now, I think that it is time for us to close the conference for today. So with that, I would like to invite to the stage the Honorable Mr. Lee Chul, the Director General for International Organizations and Nuclear Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea, who will deliver his closing remarks. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, now it is time to conclude the 6th International Conference on Action with Women and Peace. Let me firstly take this opportunity to thank all those who have contributed to making this conference a resounding success. My special thanks go to all participating speakers and panelists across UN missions, governments, and the civil society for sharing their valuable experiences and insights. I'd like to ask you to give a big round of applause to all these contributors. So when my government launched our first Action with Women and Peace initiative in 2019, we envisioned the changes that it could bring. And as we wrap up our 6th conference this afternoon, it is encouraging to see how this initiative has facilitated rich discussions as well as concrete actions to achieve peace and security for all. We had the privilege to hear a valuable first-hand account of how the UN peacekeeping missions operationalized the WPS mandate to promote women's meaningful participation in peace process. And in the second panel discussions, participants from Asian countries shared their assessment on best practices and lessons learned from their experience of developing and implementing WPS national action plans and identified areas for future cooperation. Special session on Myanmar was a overall important call to all of us that we should not forget Myanmar. And it underscored the importance of incorporating a gender perspective into whole aspects of our efforts in Myanmar to build a sustaining peace in that country. And finally, in youth session, I have to tell you that probably we are all deeply impressed by this different level of energy and passion of the panelists, and also inspired and encouraged by their deep insight, and also the role they are playing on the ground already as an agent of change. And also I was very much encouraged to hear their vision for the next 25 years of our WPS journey. And also it was very insightful comment on the how we also shape this WPS agenda in the middle of emerging and evolving global challenges. And I also have to tell you that we are very much inspired by the essays and artworks submitted by youth from around the world for the Global Youth Contest. I believe that their enthusiasm and engagement have made all of us here hopeful about the positive impacts that WPS agenda will have over the next 25 years. Distinguished guests, WPS agenda is not confined to conference room of the United Nations, as pointed out by a couple of panelists during the day. It comes to life through the participation of women and men from all strata of society. We should spare no efforts to build a world where women's voices are not only heard, but also drive meaningful changes in building inclusive and sustainable peace. As we all know, next year will mark the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325. Although we have made some progress with the adoption of the 9 subsequent resolutions on that subject and the establishment of the WPS National Action Plans by over 100 UN member states, but our action still falls short of our aspiration, and there is ample room for further actions. As a member of the UN Security Council, Republic of Korea will further strengthen its efforts to incorporate the WPS agenda into all aspects of the Council's work and to generate meaningful changes on the ground. In doing so, we hope to strengthen our partnership with all of you here. Once again, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for attending today's conference and look forward to seeing you again next year in Seoul. And also, I'd like to express my special thanks to our colleagues from the Foreign Ministry who has made a tremendous efforts to put all these things together, and also companies who supported our efforts on the MC for very excellent administration of the whole session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director General Lee, for your kind closing remarks. Well, now, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in all honesty, I believe that this is maybe my 4th or 5th time hosting the same conference. I have lost count. But every year, it is around this time, and I go home inspired by all of the speakers, all the panel discussions, and the sessions. So, in all sincerity, I would like to thank all of the speakers and panel discussants once again from the bottom of my heart. So with this, I think that this brings us to the end of the 6th International Conference on Action with Women and Peace. I hope that you have had a meaningful time with us today. And with that, I would like to thank all of the on-site participants as well as all of our online audiences. And we hope to see you again next year around this time. Thank you very much.